Let's have our own little fight here.
Better move these.
No. Are you going to slam me?
Well, I mean, I'm hoping to win.
You did give me some bullet point items of things that you wanted to talk about today. Some of those things are going to be hard to hear. Some of them are very sensitive topics. So that's kind of, I don't want to say a warning to the viewer, but things are going to get pretty real here.
They gonna be raw. Oh, it smells delicious.
Stings the nostrils.
Smells like success. Cheers,
To
brother.
success. That is a plethora of flavor. Yeah, I mean, if you have questions about what happened in the military too, I can tell you that when all that was done, I went up and took a shower with a Brillo pad and Ajax and scrubbed that filth from me. I was kidnapped. I was taken to a place that I've never been, hours and hours away. I heard click.
Welcome to the Barbells and Bourbon podcast, where the conversations are raw, real, and relatable. I am your big, bald, bearded, barbell lifting, bourbon drinking son of a bitch, Sean. And joining me today is Patrick Bibza.
What's up?
What's up, brother?
How you doing?
Good, man. Welcome to our home. Patrick, you slid into my DMs
I did,
a couple
my man.
months ago.
I did.
I didn't know you from a stranger walking down the street, but you reached out to me and you wanted to be on the show. Tell me why.
It's crazy. I had a friend of mine, random friend, don't know her very well, reach out to me and plug me onto you. And I meet like 10 minutes later, message you, and I thought, I'm not going to be wanted on a podcast yet. I'm not big time. And then within minutes, you messaged me back, and I was like, this is awesome. This is what it is about,
It kind of makes me, I don't want to say sad, but, the fact that you felt like you might not be worthy to be on a podcast, that is what this podcast is all about. It's interviewing normal people, right? Because we all have a story. We all run very deep if you're given the space to talk about it. So I won't turn anybody down unless they're like felons, or you could be past felons, but not like
not currently on the run.
Not currently.
Not currently.
If you're on a poster somewhere, you're not welcome in my home. But seriously, it's very good to have you here. I've been looking forward to talking to you and getting to know you. You did give me some bullet point items of things that you wanted to talk about today. Some of those things are going to be hard to hear. Some of them are very sensitive topics. So that's kind of, I don't want to say a warning to the viewer, but things are going to get pretty real here.
They gonna be raw.
And they're going to be raw.
They're gonna be raw.
And maybe one of you are going to be able to relate to it.
And that's what it's all about.
That is what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
We can all help people, whether it's directly or indirectly. Mm-hmm. And you will help somebody today.
That's the goal.
So
that's the goal.
I want to get to know you as an individual, Patrick. I know kind of what you do, but I want to know who you are. So let's kind of step back a little bit in time, and let's kind of start with your childhood. Where did you grow up originally?
Sure. I grew up real close to here, up in Natrona Heights. Great family, little sister, coming up. Never had to really want for anything. Weren't well off by any means. I got to see my dad do some like pole hustling and a lot of time, bowling, doing baseball, all those great things. And it's crazy because if you ask my sister, she had a very different situation, very different outlook on like my dad and my mom. My mom is my rock. She is a trooper, just survived kidney cancer and was a botched surgery. So she is going through it. No pain medicine, no complaining, none of that, just a rock. So yeah, shout out to my mom.
Mom's a trooper.
She really is. And she's always been the rock to the family. And I think, without that family dynamic, without some structure, I wasn't necessarily allowed to go and do, being when the street lights are on, that kind of thing. My life could look totally different and even maybe less healthy than it was, It's crazy when you brought up the shyness or the embarrassment, I'm going to reach out. That's because growing up wasn't brought in, I wasn't necessarily accepted. I was small. I wasn't always, Steel City badass. So it's like our childhood and what we were brought up with and raised with carries on as adults. I'm 37 years old, and I swear I still act like I'm in the 20s, and that all comes from trauma.
Yeah.
So
you said your sister and you had a different kind of viewpoint on your family dynamic. Why was that so different?
I think it had to do with my mom and dad both being very young when they had me, 19 and 17, roughly. My dad was very good with me. Sports, going to activities. I spent a lot of time in the bar, sitting on the bar stool playing Mega Touch, things like that. He spent a lot of time with me. My sister, he didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to raise a daughter. And I mean, to be fair, he was always working. He was the breadwinner. When he would come home, then me and him would go out. So she doesn't have the same memory of those interactions than with my dad kind of going down his own path. He's selfish. He likes to do his structured events, and he doesn't think necessarily about the family. So, I think everything my sister's felt is justified. We have just had two different interactions with it. And it's funny because we are also polar opposites. She could tell you every cent that's in her bank account. I couldn't tell you if I have $1 in my car, that kind of thing. So that's my childhood growing up. It was great.
Yeah. So you said your dad was kind of selfish. He was getting his cup filled by doing the things with you because he was doing all the things he enjoyed, and you were tagging along, right?
Yeah.
And your sister really couldn't do that.
Correct. And he would try his best to teach me things that he was interested in: baseball, golf, bowling. And I got with some of those, but he also had a problem with patience. So one thing that I've took from him is, and actually a couple things, I try to do the opposite of my dad, to be fair. And there's been a history of very patterns of behavior between him and I, but also I was able to break, my patience is very high. I help adolescents and I help raise youth that are troubled, and I have that patience and I try to be selfless with what I do. It's not all about what Pat wants to do. It's what do these kids want to try to, do. So that's something.
Isn't it crazy the things you learned from your dad that he didn't teach you directly, but you saw maybe, I don't want to say some negative attributes of your dad, and you don't want to repeat that into your adulthood.
It's so weird how you just remember like little instances. Like I remember my father saying something to my mother that really must have stuck. And it's the one thing out of thousands and thousands of memories, but you remember it. He made fun of her. He called her out of her name, and that stuck. And then like teaching me, I was in a fight and he said, doesn't matter if you win or lose, like just have that person remember who they fought. Little things, those little nuggets, that life, I was going through a tough time, depression, suicide thoughts, acting out, behaviors. He said, life is just like a big milk crate. And in that milk crate are all these extension cords. And it's our job every day to pull them out, try to straighten them, and then they go back in the next day. Yeah. So like little things that he probably, and he doesn't remember because I brought them up to him,
Yeah. I can kind of relate to that in a somewhat different way, but both of my parents smoked. And I told you before we started filming, I've never smoked anything in my entire life. Because my parents smoked, I never wanted to touch the stuff because it disgusted me. The house stunk, their clothes stunk. And sorry, Mom and Dad, I'm not like trying to be critical, but thank you. That's why I never wanted to touch it, because I was just like, ew. So anyways.
I think I wish I would have went down that path with alcohol. The opening question was great because I saw a lot of my heroes drink. Uncles, grandfathers, father. It was the cool thing to do. I was the beer go-getter. Hey, Pat, go grab me a beer from the fridge. I can remember that when I was, 6 years old, maybe. So I did follow for a long period of time those idols into the alcohol world. And luckily, by the grace of God today, I haven't had a drink today, which is great.
Wow. And so you walk in here, you're surrounded by 50, 60 bottles of bourbon, right?
Yes.
And I don't want to say worry, but I get somewhat concerned sometimes when someone who's in recovery comes in here, because I don't want to trigger anybody. I don't want to be the cause of a relapse or, you know what I mean, have you feel a certain way. But, you stood strong and you're like, oh yeah, you got some good stuff in here. And I used to drink this and that and the other thing. So, that just shows the strength you have with the recovery that you've accomplished.
One of the things that I put with Steel City Hardcore Recovery is that recovery ain't for sissies. Like, it really takes dedication, hard work, honesty to not even just yourself, but to another human being. And I've been in recovery for 15 plus years, and I've accumulated time, went back out, accumulated time. On my way here, I wanted to drink. 100%. I thought, come in, what's one double gonna do? And you were a strength before this. You asked, I said no, you said you won't, and I appreciated that. But I was trying to figure out, because my brain's a little off, how do I manipulate the dude to give me a double? And then after it, I'm probably gonna have another double, and then I would have been off to the races. So what I've learned in recovery is to tell on yourself. Make that phone call. And sometimes that phone is so heavy to actually tell another man, I'm struggling. I want to drink and I don't know why. My brain tries to trick me that I don't have this disease. So if I take the first one, it's then released. It just wants me to take the first one. And it says in our book, it says that we can't come up with a good reason, an explanation on why we do it. And today I made the phone call, called my sponsor. We talked about it. We said a prayer together. And it comes down to selfishness.
Yeah.
I want to drink. I want to drink now, yesterday, tomorrow, but God doesn't want me to drink.
Good for you, man. Like, I didn't know that. And that's, I kind of got the chills when you told me that. Like I said, I am the last person that wants to cause any sort of relapse in recovery. So, and I've had guests that have been in recovery, active recovery, who said, no, Sean, you can drink. This is your show. I am not going to even come close to crossing that line. So I'm honoring sobriety. We're going to drink something out of cocktail glasses, but it's not going to be that brown stuff on the wall. So
absolutely. And it was very respectful for you to do. If you would have had a drink, I don't think it would have bothered me, but the fact that you cared enough about my recovery without knowing me, we've never met, it's our first interaction. That's what's up. I have friends, and I always say that, like, half-ass, like, fake friends. And they go, oh, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
You can
have a drink. Come on.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I die.
Yeah.
Or I have an allergy where I break out in handcuffs every time. Every time.
I've never heard that. Sheesh. All right, Patrick. I want to kind of, again, step back a little bit. You said that you were a little guy when you were a kid. Tell me about high school for you. What was that like?
Shrimp.
Yeah.
I remember elementary school. A kid called me a shrimp. And those back of the mind things, it must have stuck. And when I was in middle school, I started acting out, getting a little bit of trouble. I was a really good baseball player, but I was the youngest in my class, so everybody was a little older. And I had an experience where I was sexually traumatized, and it happened to be by women. So when that happened, I didn't know how to process. I was 12 years old, something around there. So I do what a lot of kids do, rebel and act out. And I started breaking things and stealing and just doing all these behaviors to just, I guess, escape, maybe put on a mask, like an identity that I was more so. And then, like, as that progressed, getting kicked out of schools, going back and forth, really spiting against religion and God, I went into the projects. So, we kind of transitioned to high school. I'm selling weed. As a white kid in the projects, I had to get a nickname. So it came up Pizzidy P. And Pizzidy P stuck. And I worshipped that name. I held on to how powerful that name meant to me.
It felt like a big deal.
Big dude. Yeah. Big dude. Then you start getting into the guns and you start committing crimes. And my only option was to keep going down that path or join the military. And so that's kind of where my uncle, who's my hero, and going through some things, and so grateful to have him in my life, because even through, I was kicked out of college immediately, went straight cocaine, graduated from weed to cocaine, got kicked out, and then it was like, what is he gonna do? And he forced me. He kicked in the door of a trap house, grabbed me by the collar, and a month later was in the service,
Damn. So I've heard you say that you had a good childhood. You had good parents. They were structured. They loved you. They spent time with you. Yet you still ended up on the wrong side of the fence. And that was because of a traumatic experience. So do you think that was all because of that sexual abuse?
I don't know if it was all, but as I go through treatment, as I process, and as I kind of go backwards into the Carl Jung shadow workbook, Yeah, it made me feel about like I was already this big. It made me feel so, I was just made fun of and destroyed throughout high school. It like stuck to me. Like there was one thing. I did so many other things in my high school career, in my middle school career, but that thing carried along.
It was your identity.
Yeah, and you think about, again, as I've grown, as I went through, I have a master's degree from Pitt and an undergrad from Point Park. I stopped maturing at like 12. So no wonder when I was 18 and when I went to the military, I was maybe a buck 40, soaking wet, still holding on to that kind of like gangster mentality. And then, getting into the military and having them strip that away and they made me Patrick Bibza or, Airman Bibza. Dude, I excelled. I just needed to break that cycle. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of people, they get in that cycle, they can't identify it, and they get stuck.
Back to the sexual abuse. Typically, it's the other way around, right? Did you tell anybody about what happened?
Didn't even realize it was sexual abuse. I just thought, like, going into detail on it, like, I didn't feel like I could perform. I was made fun of because I was so scared. I was shy, made fun of for being little. This is pre-pubescent. So at that time, like, I didn't really think anything of it. For years and years and years, I didn't think anything of it. I just thought, this happened. They made fun of me for it, and that's it. And it wasn't until way later in my life that I was able to address it, like, that wasn't my fault. That shouldn't have happened. Yes, I went there. Yes, I knew something might happen. But, like, I blamed myself. I was in a closet looking down at myself going, what the fuck's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Why can't you do it? And I remember going into treatment after the military, and we can go back to that. But, like, they told me that I'm a knight in shining armor, and I'm a big dude. Go in that closet and grab that little dude by the hand and say, look who you become. And even now, that pat will still, especially in relationships and sex and how I view women. Oh my gosh, the addiction to porn and degradation and the things I thought about doing. Some real stuff. And I look back, I'm like, how am I here? How am I so fucking strong whenever I felt so weak?
So did this, I don't want to keep talking about the abuse, but I think it's important to talk about because I don't think enough people are talking about it, especially in this situation. It was multiple people that did this? Okay.
Yeah, it was, and they were children too.
Yeah.
I look back and I've spoken to one of them, and if they see this podcast, I'm going to talk to the other two of you because I need to make my amends. I held on to this for so long. It has had so much power on me that it became a virus in my brain, in my heart, and I've hurt so many women because of what they did to me. I owe them an apology for that, and maybe they'll reciprocate, but at the same time, that's my responsibility to let go of that.
So that's how you coped, is by lashing out on others.
Yeah, not performing any kind of a aggressive act or violence, but mentally taking that control back, that power back. I always made sure the woman felt about this big, and I felt this big. Reassurance too. Tell me about it. Tell me about how. Yeah, and then Pizzidy would come out.
Wow. So what was the first healthy relationship that you had that you can remember?
Probably with my mom and sister.
Okay.
You're talking about like after that though? I don't think I ever have.
Really? Oh, wow.
I've had a few relationships. A fiance at one time, but we were in active addiction together. Mine was cocaine and alcohol. Hers was heroin. We flip-flopped. We went together. It was a great relationship, but so toxic. After that, another relationship. Oh, man. Married woman. Like 8 years of my life, bro. 8 years of my life. Manipulation. And that's always been my issue. Power, control, dynamic. I was also sexually assaulted by a male while in the service. He used his power and control to manipulate, spiderweb it up, and then drug me. So, you come home from the service, and when I said what happened there, I did report that. It didn't happen, or it was consensual. This was during the don't ask, don't tell policy. So you come home, you're questioning your sexuality, you're questioning your strength, man, I should have stopped that from happening. How did I get myself in that scenario, that position? So, lots of treatment, lots of therapy. I'm so proud of myself for admitting it and then seeking that help, because I can't do it alone. I would have killed myself, multiple suicide attempts. Yeah, I mean, if you have questions about what happened in the military too, I can tell you that when all of that was done, I went up and took a shower with a Brillo pad and Ajax and scrubbed that filth from me. And I carried that with me for years and years and years. And that's probably also why I always needed to be dominant on women, And it's crazy. You want to be dominant on women, but you still feel this big.
Do you think you're ever going to let that person go? Or do you think you're going to carry him with you for the rest of your life?
I guarantee you, I make some amends to that person, myself, and can have a healthy, strong relationship, not just with myself, but with another person.
So out of the military, how does your life kind of go from there?
I'll tell you a quick military story just because I think you'll be like, wow. So I was kidnapped in the military from Pensacola, Florida to Louisiana by two gentlemen who started with weed. Hey, do you want to smoke some weed? And I got in their car. I was taken to a place that I've never been, hours and hours away. There was guns, there was drugs, there was selling of women. I just had knee surgery, so I was in like a knee immobilizer. I somehow escaped death, went through a swamp to only then get to a gas station to call a cab, and the same two people that kidnapped me showed up in the cab. Bro, couldn't make it up.
Sounds like a movie. I'm not laughing because it's
funny. I'm definitely
going
to sell this to ID channel.
Yeah.
But I remember, there's been instances in my life where guardian angels have shown up and presented, and I don't know at the time, but a guy picked me up, and if you're watching this, man, I really appreciate you. Chrysler 200 fancy cab. He almost didn't let me in his cab because I was so filthy from going through the swamp. He drove me around, couldn't find where I was going. I didn't remember my name. I didn't remember anything. I called my mom at 4:20 in the morning, dial-up internet, and she told me where I was supposed to be. He said, bro, that's Pensacola, Florida. I said, yeah, where am I at? Louisiana. That dude drove me 2 hours back. I showered up, charged my phone, called my cab driver. Craziest part of this story. Went to go get in my cab. I heard click, and I turned around, and the same two dudes were in a vehicle pointing a gun at me. And in that moment, I felt it hit me. It went through my back, and I died. But in reality, in this universe at least, I rolled into his car and we took off. I brag about it all the time. It's the coolest thing. I tell that story all the time. Make credentials, big and bad. I got out of there. Meanwhile, that's probably traumatic.
Yeah. But I mean, you were covering up the trauma by acting like it was not a big deal.
Correct.
Yeah.
And same probably with, even the petty officer and those girls, I can try to make light of it. I make jokes about it. And really, there's a part of me that's sad. There's part of me that's sad that all of those things have happened to me. But all of those things have happened to me so that I can help someone watching this podcast or any of the podcasts I'll do. I change people's lives for the better because of what I had to go through. And I'm cool with that.
Every life experience, Patrick, is a tool in your toolbox that can be used to help somebody else.
Amen, man.
Right? And you've opened up that toolbox. And, I never view any life experience as something that, is a regret or you like to take back because it's a learning experience, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I could. I wish that stuff wouldn't have happened. But life isn't easy, and there's people that are going through way more than what I went through, and I don't like to compare it. You know what I mean? It has gotten me exactly where I'm at, and I heard someone even in a meeting last night talk about being molested by a guy, and I went up after the meeting and I shared, and he cried and hugged me, and it was like boom.
Yep.
I try to do one thing for myself, one thing for another, and one thing of service every day, and when I accomplish those, it's usually a pretty good day.
When did you start talking openly about all of these things that had happened to you? The sexual abuse by the girls, by the petty officer, the kidnapping, all of those other things that you've dealt with. When did you finally start opening up about it?
I think like the kidnapping, or like I was handcuffed during some weird stuff and sawed through it with a chainsaw and like burnt my arm, whatever, whatever. I've shared those things because they gave me credit. The molestations, not until after the military, especially when they said it didn't happen, it was consensual. I think I originally shared it maybe with a therapist, and then I told my mom. I told my mom in the car, and she pulled the car over. I thought we were gonna wreck, and because she was like, "What's wrong with you? Why are you acting this way? What are you doing?" I was doing really bad things, and I told her, and I just broke down. And even after that, I went and did interviews to try to address it. And like I said, it was don't ask, don't tell. So they didn't want to take responsibility. And I stood up for myself, and I fought and I fought and I fought until I got what, uh, I feel like they could never give back to me what they took, but at least they took some accountability for it. And I probably started sharing it more openly about 5 years ago, maybe even 10. Time kind of, but yeah, it wasn't until roughly 30.
And how did that feel?
At first, shame, at first, sadness, weakness, regret, things of that nature. The VA did give me amazing treatment, and after doing cognitive behavioral therapy and writing how I said it happened, going through treatment, and then actually writing how it did happen, none of it was my fault, huh? And I don't feel nearly as I can share about it real open and honestly now. Now I can say I've had some relationships in the past where I've shared about it, and then it was either used against me, or it was like when I would act out, it was like called out on. So I think what I've learned in life is be careful who you share things with. And I'm sharing this on an open podcast right now because it doesn't hurt me anymore. It really doesn't. I've been called a faggot. After I was molested by the guy, he looked at me and called me a faggot. And dude, oh my God, the last piece of armor was just stripped and broken. Being called a shrimp and little and you can't perform. And, that kid he's still in a closet. But I just keep fighting. I just keep fighting. I keep growing. I keep getting stronger, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. And that's what Steel City is all about: mental, spiritual, physical transformation.
I was just going to transition to that. You have you have a sign behind you. You're wearing your shirt.
Yeah.
Who is your target audience for who you want to help, and what do you want to help them with?
That's a great question. I'm actually in the process of learning more about branding. Who is my target audience? I want to help everyone. I want everyone. I'm not talking recovery from drugs and alcohol. I'm talking about recovery from trauma, from gambling, from just unhealthy behavior. So many people are stuck, even with food. I can't get in the gym. I can't do this and that. And what I try to bring to them, and why it's called hardcore recovery, is because I'm going to give it to you straight. If someone would have babysat me and gave me the I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. So I want to see all of my clients just smash it. And I've had two wonderful experiences where I brought a homeless 17-year-old African American to live with me. Graduated high school, got a job, and just graduated from the Army. Like, I know what I'm doing, I know what I can bring to it, and what I do works. And I'm not traditional. I mean, that's probably not like a traditional therapist thing to do, social worker thing to do, but I listen and I can help.
I love that. And breaking the mold is okay.
Yes.
There's tons of therapists that'll have you sit down in their chair with their diffuser going in the background and have that monotone voice. Right? Some people work well with that, and nothing against those therapists, but you kind of took your military background from being in the Navy in that, I don't want to say disciplinary, control type attitude, and you're bringing that to your recovery program.
Correct. And I think it's even more so like raw empathy, that I can feel what that person's going through. And I'm not going to tell them to change. I'm not going to yell at them to change. If they want what I have to offer and I can give it to them, I plant little seeds and it's up to them to water. It doesn't go smoothly all the time. I get let down sometimes by the behaviors, but it's not the person's fault. It's their conditioning. So I like to go back and start picking apart some of those things like we're doing right here. To better understand where these behaviors stem from. Sometimes he didn't know how to take a shower. He didn't know to brush his teeth. He didn't know to eat healthy. Why? It's not his fault. It wasn't taught to him. So trying to go back, reteach. I'm not normal. The box, I've done broke the box. Most of my clients also don't fit in the box. So you're right. If you can go to normal therapy, do treatment, works for thousands, millions. But if not, if none of that has worked and you're stuck and you feel like I did, I've tried to commit suicide. Come see me. Let's sit down and talk.
Yeah. That 17-year-old that you just helped, without getting too personal about his particular story, why was he a homeless 17-year-old? What happened in his life to get him to that point?
I say homeless, more couch surfing. I don't want to talk negatively on family. He had a rough family life. He was rebelling. He was, doing things that typical 16, 15-year-olds do. I met him because of a higher power. Did not know this kid from Jack on the block. One of my OGs, one of my original drug dealers, actually the guy who gave me Pizzidy, his son reached out to me and needed some money. And I said, well, why don't we go have dinner? We'll have chicken wings. So he was like, do you care if my friend comes with me? And I'm like, is he cool? And he said, yeah. So we sat down at a bar. I'm drinking Pepsi, they're drinking Pepsi, ordered chicken wings. And my only thought was, now we don't get half the chicken wings, we get a third of the chicken wings. I was kind of upset about that. But we sit there and I'm praying and I look over and they're both praying too. And I was like, oh crap, because I felt it. Literally inside of me went, you're about to do something. I brought both of them home. Both of them. I had them both up in my game room, on the couch, having a great time, doing things like a father would do. And that's something that I've realized, not just with these two, but African American men are in jail more so than like my father. I think it's like 75% since the 80s. Giving them some kind of a role model, some kind of structure, some kind of guidance, just watching a movie with them, teaching them to cut the grass. Man, they were riding the tractor in my backyard. Hilarious.
It's something they've never done before.
Taking them, doing those things. So it's just be a positive role model. Be someone that they can look up to. If I was smoking weed with them and drinking and doing this and that, then who am I? I'm just another guy.
I got a tough question for you, Patrick. And it might take you a minute to think about your answer, but you're helping adolescents, you're helping adults, and you said sometimes you feel like a failure if you can't fix them. How are you preparing yourself to take on the weight of all of that and be the one who has to fix people? Like, are you prepared for those failures, and how are you going to get through that?
I think let me start by saying the reason I do so well with adolescents is because I still have that adolescent in me. I'm helping that guy, which then branches out to helping all these others. I am very cool with them. I am can talk their language and get down to their level. And that's another thing that I'm great at. I get to the person's level, whether they're high, low, middle, wherever it may be. You got to talk to the person where they're at. Drop down to a knee. If someone's in the hospital, drop down to a knee and talk to them like they're a human. Now, when it comes to how do I handle it, I got strong shoulders. I got lots on my plate. I've learned along the way, though. I did not take failure well 15 years ago. I learned that we plant the seeds. It's up to them to grow. We can try to provide nutrients. I can give them tidbits of information that seashells come in from the ocean and you can't get them all, things like that. So being open to learn, being open to know that maybe my way of thinking is not right. And again, one of my mentors said, hey, Pat, why do you always think that what you're doing is the best way? Why do you always think what you're doing is right? And I've never thought that in my life. I was like, really? Maybe I'm not? And that was the moment where my life changed and I started being more open-minded. So now we're talking about being honest. We're talking about being open-minded. Now, I've had the willingness to jump out of my comfort zone, go from a solid job, a solid career. Screw that. Let's go back after the military. I probably could have just sat on my butt and not really done much. Went to college, dropped out of college, went to another college, graduated while using heroin. Went to grad school, strung out on alcohol and cocaine. Never thought I was embarrassed to apply to grad school. No way the University of Pitt would want someone like me. I graduated like a lot later than I should have because of things. And I'm going to share this one with you too. I told you about the guardian angels. My first ever class at Pitt, I was on a bender the night before. And I woke up the morning and it was 7 a.m. and I knew I had a class. I wanted to go get some cocaine, some alcohol. There was a bar that opened. No one had nothing, but they had some crack. I smoked crack cocaine for the very first time before my first ever class. Get into my classroom, big lecture hall. The door slammed behind me. I'm late. Everybody looked at me. I'm freaking out. There was one seat in the top of that lecture hall left. I climbed every single stair, sat down in the middle, and I'm crushed. If anybody's went through like the crash of crack cocaine, you know what I'm talking about. To the left of me was a young lady with dark hair, and to the right was a young lady that was like blonde hair. And this one told me, "You don't look real good." And I said, "I ain't feeling real good." And she said, "Maybe you should just get out of here." And I said, "Yes, I should." So I got up and I just left immediately. Years later, probably 2.5 years later, I graduated. I was in a suit and tie because I already had my cap and gown. One other person was in a dress. She looked at me and she said, "You look like you're doing so well." I said, "Who? I don't know who you are." She said, "Oh, you don't remember me?" I said, "No, just in your first class, you sat down next to me. You didn't look like you were doing good. I'm so proud of you today."
Wow. Yeah.
Why was she there?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Do you know who that person is?
No.
Okay.
If you're somehow watching this, and if you remember, and if you're not like an angel and actually still here, do reach out. Plus, you were.
Was it the blonde or the brunette?
It was the brunette.
He's looking for someone.
Looking at a shout out. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, that is crazy. You have had a lot of like full circle moments.
Life altering experiences.
Yeah.
Things that most people don't get through. I don't know another white kid that gets out of the situation I was in that trap house. I'll give you a tidbit of what happened there. Crazy.
What did it take for you to admit that you had a problem with drugs and alcohol and porn and blah, blah, blah? What was that rock bottom moment where you were like, I am not living with this Patrick anymore?
Still hasn't hit.
Yeah.
It still fully hasn't. Admitting and accepting are two different things. I could admit it was a problem for a very, very long time, accepting that it was going to be kind of my life. And I'm a firm believer that like once I'm an alcoholic, I'm always an alcoholic. I have a pickle and a cucumber on my leg. Once you become pickled, you can't go back. I still struggle with that. You know, I want to be the exception. I want to do what everybody else has done better, differently, so that way I don't have to do that. Accepting that, you know, the sexual trauma really has played a huge role in my life makes me cry. There's multiple times in relationships where I've broken down. I hate myself for that, but don't give up. Don't give up, because there's always a light out there. And sometimes they say like what you want is on the other side of hard work, determination, and it's also on this other side of the things you don't want to do. I'd rather not have to do this. I'd rather not have to go to meetings, learn about myself, address character defects. But on the other side of that, I get to help the next addict who's still suffering. When I get through my traumas, and I'm going to be the best partner in the entire world. I already have those attributes, but there's just that little bit in there that's still ticking. So,
you're a work in progress, like all of us.
And we all are. You know, when you stop growing, when you stop learning, I'm in a cocoon stage. I'm going to come out a sparkly butterfly, as my girl Sparkle Lindsay would say. You know, I just want to keep leveling up. It's like a video game. You know, you want your character to keep increasing. I want new armor. I want new swords. I want a flaming sword. And I want to just be a badass in recovery.
So, Patrick, if there is one thing that you can think of that keeps you up at night, what is it? What is that thing that just weighs on you still to this day that you just can't quite shake?
Powerlessness. That I'm powerless over my thoughts. I'm powerless over what has happened. I always look for why, the conclusion, closure. You know, the relationship with the married woman went for years, and there was a lot of, miscarriages that weren't even real. She's never pregnant. Why? Oh, I have cancer and I'm dying. I love you so much. Please stay with me. Never had cancer. Why? Whole time cheating on her husband. You know, oh, my dad's in the hospital in a coma. I'm sending flowers to the fucking hospital. Never in a coma. Why? I just want to know, why am I not good enough? Why am I not good enough? Why wasn't I good enough with those girls? Why did that petty officer think that I was a target? So he keeps me up at night until I just turn it over. And acceptance and forgiveness and self-love, and they still flare up. It's like anything else, you can have flare-ups, but they get less and less. Or now I know my medication's right there on the shelf. Well, not this stuff, but like I have my medicine on the shelf. If I start breaking out in a hive, I put some pink lotion on it. Same with that. I start acting sad or insecure. I can tell, like, even this morning, I had a little outbreak with my girlfriend, and I had to make amends immediately and apologize and say, and she called it out. That's your trauma. And I'm like, you're right. But like, I love it. I love being able to tell on myself when I'm wrong, take accountability for it, and slowly but surely that powerlessness or the lack of it and accepting it, it actually is the solution. Admitting that I'm powerless, just like step one would say, but as a guy who has been molested, raped, traumatized, I gave up that power. All those people had power over me. So why would I ever give something else? Because the something that I'm giving that power to is all loving. It's the highest frequency in the world, and it loves me. So give that power up. It's a much better captain than I am.
Yeah. Your girlfriend, does she know all of this stuff?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm always an open book, and this is an early relationship. I'm talking infant stage, but I like to present all my cards on the table so that you have a chance to fold, to check raise, to do whatever you have to do. If I'm hiding stuff back, then I'm manipulating you. If I'm hiding stuff back, I'm wearing a mask. I want to be myself in any relationship. My girlfriend hates that I talk about other girls. My girlfriend hates that, like, I want to have those experiences still. And that goes from her trauma. We both have trauma. All of my relationships have been open relationships. All of my relationships I've cheated. All of my relationships I've wanted orgies and sex club parties. But do I really want those things? I don't know.
You're trying to get a dopamine hit somehow.
Of course.
Cover something up. Some
Dopamine
pain.
hit, and also just, dude, I perform. I'm a performer. It's not a intimate setting. It's me performing and me being the best at it, and it's what gives me that gusto. I was more proud that I knew how to cook crack cocaine on a Foreman grill than the master's degree on my wall.
Said no one ever. Well, maybe.
Yeah, especially a white boy.
I mean, I'm trying to imagine a first date with you, Patrick. Not that there's anything wrong.
I did hit you up in the DMs.
You did. I mean, it's like, do you have like a PowerPoint presentation ready to go?
Oh my gosh. Dude,
I know what you can do from now on. If things don't work out with your girlfriend, just send them the link to this. Say, watch this.
And you will now.
If you're okay by the end, then we can continue
I'm
on.
scarring the majority of women out there. I'm done. I guess I'm single forever. Me and my dog. Super open from the jump. Probably word vomit way too much. It's definitely hindered. It's too much too quick. And my sponsor says you share all of those things, but take a little time. I think my thing is acceptance. I'm going to tell you all these things. So that way you either accept me, or what I'm typically used to is like you reject me. And my thing with rejection is you just can't handle me. I'm way too much. I'm too much. I have so much love, but I also have so much resentment. I have so much trauma, but I have so much passion and empathy. If you can't handle it,
I mean, it's a lot of baggage, and I understand, kind of pacing yourself with dumping all of that on somebody is probably really important. So your current girlfriend, she has her own traumas that you don't have to go into detail, and I'm not going to ask you to, but do you think that helps that relationship, being that you've been through shit, not technically together, but you can sort of relate to each other, versus say you meet a girl who has had the picture perfect life, nothing's ever happened. Do you think they'd be running for the hills?
I don't know. I would. If I was the female version, there was a guy, like, I don't think a normal person, someone who hasn't been through experiences, could probably relate, but maybe they would be that healthy other side of it all. I think that with her and with my other relationships, it's a 50-50. Yes, I can relate to her. She can relate to me. This one's very healthy, the communication, and that's key to any relationship. Communication, honest communication. But also it can fire off each other, almost like a reverse magnet kind of thing. So I look at it, I try not to look at other people's relationships, but I see a lot of sucky relationships, husbands cheating on wives, wives sliding into my DM. Am I really that bad? Or am I really that like unhealthy? I think I'm just not scared to share it. I put it out there, boom. You take it or leave it.
I asked you that for two reasons.
Yes.
One, I'm just genuinely curious, but I can sort of relate to you as far as the backgrounds between couples. I lived a very picture perfect life, right? Great childhood, never gotten into any trouble. I was called to the principal's office one time. That was like the extreme of how much trouble I got into. We're talking like nothing compared to some of the other guests, including yourself. However, my girlfriend lived a very different life. And I'm not going to go into detail. That's on her terms, and maybe one day she'll sit here and she'll spill the beans. But it was a lot for me to take on because I couldn't relate to X, Y, and Z that she had been through. And for me to actually understand why she was acting certain ways about certain things because of those traumatic incidents, it takes a lot of work for me, because you just want to be like, oh, that was in the past, you're fine. But you hang on to that stuff. And it took me years to mature enough and understand that, okay, there's a reason why. She's not just doing this because she's, just an angry person or there's something mentally not right. She's doing this because she's been through some shit. So
it takes maturity and patience, and I commend you for that, because it's probably made you even a stronger man. Yeah. A lot of people, they quit too soon, or if it's something that's meant to be, or you feel that feeling, there needs to be love and compassion. And I'll tell you, I want my cake and eat it too. So you handle my trauma, you handle all the things that I want, but let me hear about your ex or your sexual history. You could sleep with 2 guys, and I can sleep with 1,000 girls. You're the whore, not me. Meanwhile, damn, Pat, and that's probably one of the sicknesses that is the deepest for me, and I can't figure it out. And that's why I sometimes get into those funks where I'm depressed or I'm sad, because I want to figure it out. And that's where a lot of my arguments stem from. It's not being able to accept the other person's past, and maybe that's because I don't accept mine. So what do we do about that? Because I don't care what the problem is. We identified it. How do we get to that solution? And I think it's by going to therapy. I think it's about talking to people that have educational background, and then also people maybe have went through those things. And for me, it's always been couples therapy too. I'll get into couples therapy real early because I like to have a moderator. Sometimes I say things, but I mean something else. And sometimes they say stuff and I'm hearing something else. And that has been so good. We are not in couples therapy yet.
Hopefully you don't need to be. Hopefully things are nice, smooth sailing, and
it's rocky as hell already, my man. Come on now.
Well,
definitely couples therapy.
Look, all relationships take work.
Yeah. Yes.
Some form of work. I want to ask, so you said there's always like that double standard, right? Why do you think that is the case? Is it still the control that's kind of coming to the surface for you? You can do what you want. You're powerful. You're that gangster that you used to be. I could do, like, do you think that's what's happening there?
Yeah, I'm sure it's like a power and control dynamic. I'm sure it's the masculinity. Like, I want to, seeing someone as an equal is probably one of my issues. And I've had instances where maybe I didn't see my partner as an equal, and then I get called out, and all of a sudden I see them differently. I actually see a different person. So, it's growth, it's nurturing the good and not the bad for this relationship. We have not done anything that I used to do in relationships, asking about past experiences. Tell me the roughest, tell me the pornography version of you. Let me hear that. Let me hear the whore version, because I have a Madonna whore complex. You're either Madonna and I love you and I'm intimate with you, which rarely happens, or you're just a whore and I'm screwing you. I can say fucking, but yeah, fucking them. So, being able to integrate that. And I think there's a lot of shame with that. Like, there's a lot of shame that I can't, comprehend it. Why? I'm smart. It just is what it is. And it's probably trauma based. It's probably experience based. Probably because I've had a lot of experience. You know, I practiced it. You keep practicing one thing, that's what it is.
Yeah. Patrick, I'm thirsty.
Yeah, my man.
You?
Sure.
So we've already discussed you're not going to share any of that stuff with me, but we have some healthy supplements if you want.
Yes.
We have some electrolytes. We have a pre-workout if you want to get all fired up. We have some aminos. We're not giving you a test booster.
I've already taken my test booster today.
I can tell.
My knee's still a little sore from the shot.
What do you want? Electrolytes, aminos.
So as an addict, I've always said more is better. So let's just mix in some pre-workout and some aminos with maybe some electrolytes and just rock and roll.
Okay, that's a first.
Yeah, buddy.
Let's go.
It's gonna taste like Berry Old Glory berry. Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Could be a new product. Pat, I hope you're watching, Pat. You can formulate a new amino pre-workout, amino test booster electrolyte.
Blend, yeah.
Call it. What would we even call it? Anyways.
The old suicide from the fountain drink. You know, when you just mixed all the flavors together?
Yes. Don't put too much of this in.
Okay.
Because we don't have that much water. Pour some water into your... Oh, you're out of water.
I drank all my water. I stay hydrated.
Do you mind if I pour my water into your...
Absolutely don't care.
I don't think I have.
We're going with a half scoop of this Overkill stimulant pre-workout.
Dude.
And it's going to be delicious.
You're crazy.
What do we got over there? Some blue raz, and we got some berry.
I wonder what color this is going to make.
It's going to be like a dark purple brown. It's going to taste horrible.
It's going to look like poo water.
But I've definitely
delicious.
ingested...
Give me some.
Oh, my bad. I didn't know you were doing the mix.
Come on now.
You doing the mix too?
Yeah. I'll just do electrolytes and...
All right, none of the pre-workout overkill?
Give me some. Come on. I've never turned down the challenge. I've done worse on this show.
Yeah.
My last guest, Dan, brought some hot honey with him, with some hot red pepper flakes and scorpion pepper flakes and ghost pepper flakes in honey, and we put that in the bourbon and drank that.
No, thank you. I'd much rather try this.
He called it Devil's Juice 666.
Oh, I love that. Okay, never mind. I'm trying it.
No, you're not.
Devil's Juice 666. I like it. Oh, yeah, that looks golden grams.
It looks like Fruity Pebbles.
I hope that's what it tastes
Fruity
like.
Pebbles milk.
I mix everything together, though. Like, my sister keeps everything separated on the plate. You know, I'm putting all that together.
Your mashed potatoes
the
plus corn,
the mac and cheese, the chicken, just...
How did we just say mashed potatoes and corn at the same time? That's a comfort food.
That's that nappy time.
This looks really interesting.
Oh, it smells delicious.
It smells like success. Cheers.
Just
buddy.
success. Oh my
I didn't know we're
gosh.
taking shots.
Oh. That is a plethora of flavor.
That's actually not
I
bad
thought
at
it was
all.
really good. Yeah.
All right. Give us a few minutes.
We're going to be right back.
We're going to start growing like hair on our foreheads. And All right. Now that we're all hopped up on whatever that concoction was, you've shared a lot of problems with me today. What do you provide as solutions for someone who's coming to you for help? Like what's your secret sauce?
My secret sauce is that variety, the lived experiences, what's worked for me. I'm going to share it with you, and with hopes that it's going to work. Because if you're coming to me, you're not coming for that regular, that norm, that try this book and write these down, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to give you these metaphors, these advices, these visualizations. I think a lot about when I'm having those urges, those cravings, maybe the feelings of not feeling good enough, the mental health disorders. You know, I'm a golfer. So what I do is I think about just scooping them all up and I put them into this golf ball, and it's in there and it's compressed. It's out of my head. It's not on the golf ball. I go to my favorite golf course, Birdsfoot, and I tee it up on the one box. And I know there's fescue on the right, there's traps on the left, and I just bang one up the middle. 310 plus.
It's uphill the whole way too.
Uphill, second shot, uphill into. Don't know where the hole's at, but it's a great shot. So now I'm feeling a little better about myself. I'm walking up to my ball. As I'm walking, I'm smelling the grass. I'm smelling the air. I'm listening. get up to that ball, if I'm still having those feelings, I hit a second shot, dime, little backspin, I'm 3 foot from the cup, I'm gonna make it. I've never had to play more than 3 holes to get through a suicidal thought, through a desire to drink or use. It's just a great way to distract my mind. So like that's a tool that I would bring to Steel City Hardcore Recovery. I do a lot of reading. I read what other people have said works, and I will reframe it into something that I relate to. If it's not relatable, it's not going to work. So if people can't relate to golf, maybe they can relate to basketball or punching bags. Something else I really like to do is this team, it's a football field for me, but it's team recovery and team addiction. So, they're both going to get first downs, they're both going to move the ball around, but if team addiction scores, recovery gets another chance. We're not always granted that though, and that's what's scary about messing with this team. And what I found is team addiction knows all of my plays. It's the Bill Belichick of
stealing signs.
Yeah, oh geez, of the NFL. I hope that doesn't get cut. So like it'll hit me with these trickeries, and it'll run the right scheme against my play. I'm gonna go to meetings every day, and then it starts telling me, man, you don't need the meetings. There ain't nothing going on at those meetings. It'll tell me that working the steps, you can skip a couple of those. You work 1 and 2, don't worry about 3. Let's go to 7, 8, 9. Those kind of things. So it's about being aware of it and asking for help. Maybe I got to hire a new coach, a new assistant coach. When I graduated from Point Park, Charlie Batch shared that the key to any successful life is an offensive line. So having a good center, that's my mom. Left tackle, left guard, protecting my blind side. I always wanted to build from the outside in. Let me go get that star wide receiver. Let me get that Barry Sanders running back. Nah, not without that offensive line. So I think in even like maybe the past 5 years, I've been able to solidify and start to build. And now I can start getting defensive players. Maybe team addiction is actually starting to turn into team recovery, and it'll keep me from team addiction moving the ball. And then finally, I like to visualize a garden. I call it like my life garden. And what's crazy is we're planting seeds from a very early age, our very first thoughts, without even knowing it. We're being taught about religion. We're being taught about what's right and wrong. And those seeds are growing, and maybe they're not what I want in my garden now. Some of these are starting to get weeds growing out, and I don't even know it. By the time I'm 13 as a male, 16, 20 some because of trauma, I have a crap ton of weeds. I have these different fruits and veggies that I don't even like, that aren't supporting me at all, and it's overwhelming. You ever see a garden? You ever have a garden that's just overfilled with stuff? What are you going to do? Burn it to the ground? So what I found is you have to remove those weeds. But in order to remove them, you have to identify them. And sometimes I can't identify them, so I need to reach out. Like you just identified the trauma weed. Let's pull that bad boy out. Let's get rid of it. And underneath that is self-love and compassion. So now how do we feed that? How do we nutrient? And it's, you just keep doing that. And now I have a chance. Those seeds were planted. Maybe I don't want them anymore. I get to plant new ones. And then use other people and use myself and use God to watch those grow. And then it's my garden. It's not what the world told me the garden was. It's not what my family told me. It's not what the church told me. It's not what the school system told me. I have these degrees. I don't remember a damn thing from my college experiences. Yeah. But I do know that life experience is my garden. Everybody can eat. Everybody's eating.
I love that. I want to ask about your parents. Are they both living?
Mm-hmm.
What do your parents think of you now with all you've been through? And now you're the man you are sitting here today.
Mm-hmm.
What do they say about you?
My mom is super proud of me. Always tells me how, great of a son I am. I do a lot of helping her. She put up with so much behavior. And during that time, her thing was to shut down. I would never know my mom was mad because she told me she was mad. She would just stop talking to me for a little bit. I haven't had that experience with my mom for 15 years. We are very solid. She sees my growth. She is the first person to call me out on right and wrong, has helped me through so much. And it's even finances and things like that. I'm not a guru. I don't know, but my mom does. She's really good at that. So by me asking for help from her, from other people on how to get better. She's seeing the stronger version, and she will let me know that. She just retired from the federal government. In her card that she gave me for her party, she said, "My son and my best friend."
Wow.
And I was like, ugh. Like that was powerful. Now with my dad, we had a tumultuous relationship from like 18 to 30.
Just because of the life you were living.
Life I was living, and he's an alcoholic. He drinks a little differently than I do, but like almost every day, and he's able to not get all blacked out drunk, but he's selfish and he doesn't kind of like see his things. Taking my dad to rehab, and that was a crazy experience because my father came to me and said, "I have a problem." And I'm sitting there clean and sober. I'm working in recovery, and I'm watching my dad shake and not eat. And I brought him out there. I drove him out there, and he talked the whole time. But I think I know my dad's proud of me now. He's very emotional. He cries a lot. So when he gives me a hug, he cries. When he sees me, I'm so proud to cry. So yeah, I think both of them are proud. I don't think either of them have any kind of like ill will towards me.
So you helped your own dad.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Most parents are helping their children, but you use your experiences to help your own father.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yep.
I love that.
Thank you. And that was tough. We had to stop every hour and a half to get a drink because he was going through detox that bad. Like the rehab said to do this. That was tough. It was tough.
Speaking of tough, it's time to arm wrestle, Pat.
Ooh, okay. We move the mics?
I'll move it. This is just for entertainment.
Okay.
But I do like a challenge. So, did you watch the Tyson Paul fight last night?
Yeah, I watched it this morning, like recaps of it. I thought actually it was a decent fight. Like I thought Paul boxed and I thought Tyson got gassed, but I don't think it was like this sparring exhibition where he wasn't trying to get him as much as other people. Yes, it was for the money, but I don't know. Congrats. And they made lots of money.
Oh, yeah.
And Netflix broke.
So I checked the Netflix stock this morning to see. I know it's a Saturday, so the markets are technically closed.
Projections.
But I'm wondering if it's a good time to buy Netflix.
Buy it on Monday when it crashes.
And then
it
should recover.
Go back up. Of course, they're going
once they figure out their streaming and add new servers or whatever they have to do.
It's just crazy to think that many people were logging into that server that it crashed. Like
how can they not have been prepared for that though? They knew damn well that hundreds of millions of people were going to be watching this. My dad, who doesn't give a shit about boxing, was like, "Oh, I'm going to watch this." My girlfriend's Graham, she's 91 years old, and she wanted to see it. It was just something that I think everybody wanted to see just because it was hyped up so much.
Probably got way more views than the presidential debates, right?
Oh, I guarantee.
Which is crazy. But yeah, how didn't they know that the servers coming? Maybe they did know. They were just like, "Shit, what are we going to do about it?"
Yeah. I don't know. But it was a hard fight to watch. Tyson he didn't look the same way he looked while he was training in that documentary that they did leading up to the fight.
Where was the aggression?
He looked like a different person. His legs looked almost immobile. He looked stiff. He looked old. He looked tired. It's like, where was that other guy at?
Where was the guy that eats babies and fucks you until you love him?
Yeah.
He wasn't there. And I noticed that it was like maybe the day before, it was like the last sparring session. He was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure I'm ready? Was that enough? Was that enough?" Who the hell? But Mike Tyson's questioning his own ability, and he didn't go in there and just eat him alive. But again, his testosterone probably ain't anywhere near it. I mean, that's a 20-some-year-old. I'm sure he's
got to be replacing his natural testosterone somehow because he's still in amazing shape.
Yeah.
And he has a lot of muscle on him.
Yeah.
But
the anger wasn't there. He needs to up his dose.
He was just, even in the post-fight interview, he had very little to say. He was very soft. I don't know. It was just really strange.
You know what? Do we think about that? He was docile. And that was the opposite of what he was growing up. So perhaps he has fought those demons so much that he doesn't want to be that guy anymore. And he went in there and he thought he could win, but he was just having a good time, which lets us down. We want to see the murderer out there.
Yeah.
But he's elevated. He's transitioned into a new being. He does seem very mild-mannered. Pigeons and relaxation. So it's like good for him, but then, yeah, you kind of let us down, Mike.
Iron Mike has now become like balsa wood Mike.
No, and what's crazy? He was my version of my higher power early in recovery. I said, my higher power is Mike Tyson and Tidy Whities with a lion. Or a tiger, I guess,
Tiger.
So yeah. it was pretty nuts.
All right. All that fight talk. Right. Let's have our own little fight here.
Better move these.
No. Are you going to slam me?
Well, I mean, I'm hoping to win.
Okay. I've lost once.
Okay.
You're the 45th person I've arm wrestled.
Okay.
I've lost once. Now, look, this is for entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
We aren't like slamming each other, but I want to see a battle here.
Okay.
Okay.
So now we're gonna Mike Tyson, Jake Paul.
We're gonna like kind of feel it out,
okay.
And then we're gonna see what happens. I'm gonna ask you a question as we do this, though.
Oh, okay.
So you gotta use your head and your muscle at the same time.
Okay.
Okay. You go ahead and start when you're ready.
Ready?
Go ahead. All right, Pat.
Mm-hmm.
What is your biggest flaw as you sit here today?
Being taken advantage of, like allowing others to take advantage of me.
Why do you allow it? You know how much power you have. You overcome so many things. Why do you still allow it to happen?
People pleasing, because if I get accepted, then I'm not that little kid anymore.
Okay, so you're a people pleaser.
Yes.
I can relate to that, but it's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to please everybody else.
Yes.
Searching for that acceptance. But that's what you've been doing your entire life, is searching for acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
How do you plan on trying to get through that?
It's probably going to drain me into death. Like it's eating me alive. It's consuming me. The grays are there.
But that's why you're doing what you're doing with Steel City, right?
Correct.
You are people pleasing. You said it yourself. You want to help everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's not realistic, but that's the mentality that you have. Just be careful that you don't exhaust yourself, because you still have work to do, right? You admitted it. You still have plenty of flaws. We all do. Don't let that people pleasing stop your progress, because if you break, you're not going to help anybody.
Yeah, if you don't put your own mask on first.
Right.
I kind of hope the goal is to be able to do it in a more efficient way. I'm stretched so thin because it's not organized. So I kind of hope with Steel City you'll see an organization that then allows me to reach way more people. Like I might help 10 people a day. I'm hoping I help hundreds and then thousands, and it's actually taking some of that off of my plate.
So you want to build a team?
Build a team and just structure.
Okay.
I answer phone calls all day from alcoholics and addicts, people that need help. And it's, I'm not billing. I'm doing this because that's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
But you're right. If I don't put myself first, and I do, in regards to making sure I hit my meetings, by making sure I work with my sponsor, by spending time with family and friends. And that wasn't always the case. When you get overwhelmed, sometimes it is overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah. If you run yourself to the ground, those old habits can creep up. How am I going to cope with this exhaustion? How am I going to cope with failing this 18-year-old boy who needed me? Right? So just be careful.
Absolutely, my man. Thank you for that.
Dude, thank you so much for coming. Do you have any questions for me before we close out?
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure.
That arm wrestling match.
You want to? I'm sore.
I know, it was good. I was like, oh,
that was a fight.
There we go.
That was like a dead
better
heat.
than that Jake Paul shit.
It was. This wasn't for millions upon millions of dollars either.
Not yet.
We got nothing from
Not
this
yet.
except for this amazing
I
concoction.
know. I'm going to work out after this.
All right, watch one of these episodes. Whatever's going to be pushed towards you, you're going to love it. I guarantee it. And subscribe to the channel. It is completely free. It helps me. It helps Pat and every future guest that sits in that seat. And I will see you on the next episode of Barbells and Bourbon. Peace.
Cut.